Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Michelle again with Lone Star Left. I've got two and one more on their way. Wonderful candidates joining me today to talk about the primary election. And so let's just get into it. We'll just introduce them one at a time. Let's start with you, Solomon. If you could just take a couple minutes to tell the listeners who you are and what seat you're running for.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Excited to be on. I'm Solomon Ortiz Jr. I'm running for House District 34, which is in South Texas in Corpus and West Nueces County. I actually served in the legislature before from 2000. I got elected in a special election in 2006, then served to 2011. I know a lot of things have changed in politics since then, but a lot also remains the same. So I'm excited to be back in the political mix and, asking for everyone's support as we get to the primary here on March 5th.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a big primary election, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But next, let's introduce Rachel, who I think is going to be a very welcome face to a lot of people in Collin County. Rachel, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rachel Mello. I am running for Texas Senate District 8. For those of you who aren't as familiar, my opponent is Angela Paxton. So that's what I'm doing. um, my my day job, I am a full-time public school teacher, and so I actually am off today. My son had a medical procedure done overnight, and we didn't get home from the hospital until a couple hours ago. So that's how I'm able to fit this in today. But thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity to be here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we do have one more person that will be joining us in 10 minutes. I got the word that she was locked out of her office. So hopefully she'll get that resolved and we'll see her here in a little bit. But I want to start by talking about the primary election. So, Rachel, I don't think that you have a primary election, but Solomon, you've got how many other Democrats in this race? Two?
No, one other Democrat in the
One? Okay.
primary. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so the primary election is on March 5th, and the last day to register to vote, if you're not already, is February 5th. And so I just want to talk about what do you think sets you apart from your primary contender?
No, great question. As I mentioned in my introduction, I previously have served in the legislature, and so your previous service or your previous time there in terms of seniority carries over. So, God willing, winning the primary and winning the election in November, I would actually be coming in as a fourth term member. So seniority plays a big part in committee assignments. As many people know, or maybe not know, the committee assignment process, the speaker pretty much picks all committee membership. But seniority, though, when you get your card to ask or to your kind of wish list of committees to get on, there's the speaker list and then the seniority list. And so based on your seniority, you can get on bigger, better committees versus say as a freshman when you have no seniority. So that one issue sets me apart. And I'm also proud of the endorsements and the support that I've gotten, which also sets me apart from my opponent. I recently was endorsed by Texas AFL-CIO and by the local Coastal Bend Labor Council, which is a series of different unions and labor organizations here in the Corpus Christi area, the IBEW, CWA, IAM, Machinist, several different local unions. So I'm really proud and excited to have gotten their endorsement here actually just a few days ago. So those are just some of the issues that differentiate me from my opponent, as well as, if you look, campaign finance reports just came out. If you look and see who the donors are to each of our campaigns, you'll notice what side of the aisle is donating to my opponent versus the donations that are coming to me. So, with all that said, we're working hard. Obviously, we can't take anything for granted. Early voting will be here before you know it on February 20th, which is just really right around the corner. So we're excited, we're excited about the campaign, and we're out there every day, working hard.
And are there any Republicans running for that seat?
Yes, ma'am. There's one Republican who's filed. I'm not very familiar with her. She doesn't have a primary, or didn't have a primary, so I haven't really seen much campaign activity or signs or any social media or anything really like that. But as we all know, these larger Republican groups like TLR or ART, they have the ability, and actually ART has already endorsed the Republican opponent. So they have the ability, as listeners and viewers know, to drop several $100,000, in one swoop. So, those are things that we have to be aware of and prepared for. But at the end of the day, we're gonna outwork everybody because we're out there, working as hard as we can. So, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am of the personal opinion that Texas will not move redder. We will not see a backstep to a redder Texas or a red wave anywhere in this state. Let's start with you, Rachel. Do you agree with that?
Well, there's certainly a lot more diversity in the state now than there was 20 years ago when the state flipped red, and they've been in power for that entire time. If you go and look at the historical record, like Republicans have been running things here for a while, and they don't seem to be getting better. So I think that they are very hard pressed at this point to put forth new policy ideas or new initiatives that they haven't already had the opportunity to try, or that haven't already been proposed and been shot down. And we see the state of things now, and I don't think that people are happy with where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Victoria Nyave Criado, I don't know if I said that right. You're going to have to correct me on this.
Thank you.
She just logged in. We already did the introduction, so let's just get right to you. Why don't you take a couple minutes to tell us who you are and which race you're running for?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Victoria Nyave Criado. I serve as state representative for House District 107. So I currently represent part of Mesquite, Garland, and East Dallas in the Texas House, and serve as chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, and have launched recently our campaign for state senate for several reasons. And just a little bit about my background. I'm the daughter of an immigrant dad from Mexico and a strong Tejana mom who taught me the importance of education and fighting for our community and standing up whenever I see injustices. It's one of the reasons I decided to go to law school. I am a first-generation college graduate, and really wanted to raise the voices of our community. We flipped House District 107 from red to blue in 2016, in a year when people said we could not do it. We were running against an entrenched incumbent at the time who had voted to cut $5.4 billion from our public schools. We flipped that seat against the odds, and in a very similar race now are running to bring a new voice and give Democrats a choice about the type of leadership that they want in Senate District 16, when we have an incumbent who has been voting against the interest of the residents of this district. It was substantially redrawn in redistricting. It is now Senate District 16 here in Dallas encompasses, has more than 49.3% Latinos, over 70% people of color. And right now, with the urgency of the times, with Governor Abbott attacking our mixed status families, Paxton terrorizing, Mrs. Cox from Dallas, who had to travel out of state to obtain abortion health care. We are in urgent times where we need leaders, bold leaders, who are willing to step up and fight and raise our voice when our communities are under attack. And so I have been a leader in the Texas House. I've passed landmark legislation like the Lavinia Masters Act, which addresses the backlog of thousands of untested rape kits. We got $50 million from the Texas budget. And since the passage of that law, we have eliminated one of the rape kit backlogs in Texas. We still have work to do because we still have rape kits that have been untested. But when you look at what's happening in our state, we have, a recent study that said that there have been 26,000 pregnancies as a result of rape. And you think about the trauma on women who have not just undergone the initial rape, but now the additional trauma of being taken away her choice of what to do with her body. These are urgent times. And so there are many reasons I decided to get in the race, but I'm happy to be here and happy to answer questions and dig down into it as well.
Okay, that was actually a perfect answer. So, you and Rachel is running for SD 8, which is Angela Paxson. So both of you guys are running for the Senate. Maybe the Senate will flip, maybe, but it probably isn't going to flip in 2024, which means that Dan Patrick and Republicans will have full control. Why don't we start with Rachel? What do you think Democrats can do in the Senate to push back against Dan Patrick and against the MAGA agenda?
Well, I think our House Democrats have done a fantastic job, especially with the vouchers, of holding the line and working with the Republicans, the rural area Republicans, on that issue to prioritize our schools and our school children and our teachers and the needs of those communities. And I think that is a model that we can follow on some other key issues, because every Republican doesn't necessarily agree with the direction that the party is going. There are a lot of Republicans that are dissatisfied, and some that are very angry about what is happening. So they don't always feel comfortable speaking out, but that doesn't mean that they're not out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Victoria, I would ask you the same question, knowing that the Senate, even the Democrats on the Senate, have a history of being more conservative and, not really getting into any type of confrontations with Republicans or Dan Patrick. So what would you do that would be different?
You and the incumbent Senator Nathan Johnson in Senate District 16 is exactly that type of person. He's not putting up a fight on these issues that matter the most. I, as a Texas legislator, as a chair of a caucus, led the fight on so many of Governor Abbott's discriminatory attacks on our communities, from trying to fight back against this elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education was such a battle. But I also helped kill multiple pieces of Republican legislation that would have been extremely harmful, including one of the bills that that the incumbent senator has now voted for. Senate Bill 4 in the third called special session puts 10 years mandatory jail time if you're caught, for example, driving somebody who is undocumented. I killed that bill when it was House Bill 800 during the regular session with using a point of order. We fight as legislators in the House with everything that we have, because we know what's at stake for the residents of our state. American citizens also should not be questioned about our citizenship. People of color should not have to be worried about, getting 10 years jail time if they're driving to a quinceañera or driving their families to the park. We are in a time where, very similar to 2017, which was my first session in the House, where, after Trump was elected, Governor Abbott was pushing a Senate Bill 4 back then. We have to fight with everything that we have. And look, in the House, it's also Republican dominated. I've still passed big pieces of legislation. We work across the aisle in a lot of things, but on these critical issues that impact our way of living, the direction that Texas is going, we have to fight back. We cannot cave to Dan Patrick, which is why another reason why I decided to run in this for Senate District 16.
Okay. And so going to the other side of the Capitol, we've got the House. Solomon, you've got experience there. You're running there again. There has been a lot of talk on the Republican end, saying that they want to make sure that they eliminate all Democratic chairs. Now, I have a lot more hopes that the House could flip this year, but let's say it doesn't, and Republicans manage to push through no Democratic chairs. Where do you think that puts Democrats in the House, and you specifically?
Yeah, no, great question. And Obviously we would not want that. We have a lot of great chairs who are Dems, serving in the House. At the end of the day, that decision will be made by Speaker Phelan. So I think a lot of the folks who are pushing him are obviously the more extreme, farther right members. So I hope that doesn't happen. At the end of the day, many of the committees that are chaired, for example, Chairman Joe Moody, criminal jurisprudence, among others, are focused on making good policy for the state. And that is not a partisan issue, good policy. And so I think part of it is awareness. And Representative Victoria Neavitt just, she couldn't have said it. I couldn't say it any better than she did. A lot of the issues that the House Dems are working on with leadership like her is raising awareness, right? Information is power. And so there's a lot of issues that are happening at the state, and a lot of Texans, don't have the time to follow every single detail or all the minutia that's happening. So we're lucky to have members like Victoria, Trey Martinez Fisher, Armando Wale, countless others in the House who do a very good job of making a lot of this information, public, making it easy to digest, making it easy to understand. And that's what's getting people more engaged and more active. And we need to continue that. We need to make sure that people are aware of what your government is doing, whether that's in the state House or in the state Senate. And at the end of the day, the more people that know the draconian laws that are being passed by Republican leadership, whether it's SB 4, whether it's, countless other measures that are being pushed that are quite frankly harmful to our families, harmful to our communities. The more we get information out there, the more hopefully people get engaged. Obviously you can register to vote until February 5th. There's a lot at stake in these elections, whether it's the primary elections or the November elections. And so we got to make sure that every Texan knows what's at stake and knows that they can make an impact by simply voting. A lot of times, I was just at an event last night and I was talking to, when I was speaking, I was saying, it's great to come together. It's great to, have these events and fundraisers and whatnot, typical things you do in a campaign. But at the end of the day, if you don't vote, it's all wasted, right? And so take your friends, take your neighbors, take your kids, your tia, your tío, your aunt and uncles. Every single vote is going to count. And so we just really need to instill in people that your vote is your voice. And that's how things are going to improve. That's how things change by the individuals and folks being involved in the elective process.
Okay. So I want to stick with you for just a second because Victoria, she mentioned SB 4, which was a terrible bill. It's a racial profiling bill. And you're in Nueces County, which is a lot closer than the rest of us. We're all up in DFW. So as somebody who is closer to border communities, I don't know if Nueces considered a border community?
We're in the coastal
far?
bend, so we're about 2 hours north of the border.
Okay.
But we have a huge agricultural community, right? As well. So a lot of these issues, and SB 4, as we know, wasn't just something that pertains to the border. This is something where law enforcement, can be targeting individuals, as to the, as far north as the state of Texas goes, and as far west and east. And so, these are issues that are extremely concerning. And Armando Wale, got a lot of social media time when he was on the House floor, expressing his personal feelings and, how this is going to impact real people, real families. And a lot of times, a lot of that is just either forgotten or willfully forgotten or ignored. And, at the end of the day, these are real families, just like Representative Victoria said, to get 10 years possibly in prison for driving to a quinceañera, driving to a family event or wedding. These are just absurd laws, and hopefully the federal government steps in and Department of Justice, takes legal action in terms of reversing and stopping these laws. We saw something similar that happened in Arizona, what people called the Show Me Your Papers bill. I believe it was in 2010. And
yeah, it was in 2012. The federal case was in 2012. Yeah.
So we've seen the impact of what these laws can do. it was extremely scary and dangerous to the community. And not only that, in terms of the workforce and individuals who work on a lot of agricultural or farms, they fled the state. And so, there's a lot of unintended consequences. And so, again, we need to make sure people are aware of these laws, aware of what the Republican agenda is, because there's so much at stake, and we just can't sit idly. We have to be active and engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rachel, when, we talk about your race, Paxton is a name that comes up, even though it's not Ken Paxton, it is his wife who, some might refer to the Bonnie to his Clyde. So when you hear about the border situation, from a North Texas perspective, when you know what Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott are doing down there, I mean, what do you think that the House legislator or the Senate their role is in maybe getting some of this under control, as far as Greg Abbott's behavior?
Well, when I think about the border, I think about how it impacts my students, and even in the DFW area, we see these impacts. I think about we have students who are citizens, and their parents, or even not their parents, but their caregiver may not be a citizen. What happens when we have a second or third grader who comes to school for the day and then goes home and there's no adult there because that adult has been deported? I think about families who want to be involved in their child's education, but we now have police officers on every campus. So that threat of police harassment, if you're not a citizen, are you going to go to campus and be as actively engaged in your child's educational process because you don't want to risk having that interaction with a police officer? Those are kinds of the situations that I get drawn to. As far as what's happening on the border, a lot of that is governed by federal law. We have a legal obligation to educate those children as they come into the country. We have a legal obligation to provide care for them. And that is outlined in federal law. That's been outlined in Supreme Court cases. And, we're just ignoring that based on the whim of a couple of men who are beginning to act like they're always going to be in power. And that is really concerning to me, because we're beginning to set some precedents that, would you be okay with this if the other party was in charge and making this decision? Would you be okay with the attorney general having unilateral decision over anything if it was a Democrat, but you're cheering because it's a Republican? And I think when we look at policy decisions, we really have to look at, is this the way that it needs to be? And this is the way it needs to be no matter what party is controlling things, because this is the way that is best for the people. And our elected officials have gotten away from that. And we're not making decisions based on the law, and we're not making decisions based on what's good for people. We're making decisions based on how much money my donors are going to give me, and how many people can I motivate to vote, and that's the politics side. That's not the people side. And at the end of the day, the people are the most important thing. And our leaders, they appear to have forgotten that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So Victoria, SB4 is the reason that you stated you are running this primary election. And, as somebody who has spent the last 2 sessions in the House, could you speak a little bit more to, the consequences of that, but not only that, but maybe the more broader context of Operation Lone Star?
Absolutely. And I've been honored to serve for 4 legislative sessions since 2017. And so there's 2 SB4s. the first one is a 10 years mandatory jail time for driving somebody. The second one is the Senate bill form. Both were signed into law by Governor Abbott. The second one is the even broader one that gives law enforcement the power to arrest, to question American citizens about our citizenship, and to also remove, or in other words, deport. So y'all mentioned the Arizona case. That is a Supreme Court precedent that has been on the books that Texas is specifically trying to overturn with this law, given the new makeup of the Supreme Court. We saw the US Supreme Court, reverse Roe v. Wade. They want to now test how far a state can go with respect to immigration powers. And that is something that lies squarely within the power of the federal government because of the supremacy clause and other, constitutional provisions. And what's happening on the border absolutely has statewide ramifications. We want our law enforcement to be able to work hand in hand with our community. We want people to report crimes if they are a victim of a crime. The laws like Senate Bill 4 are creating a chilling effect in our communities. Back in 2017, when the last SB 4 passed, we had immigration town halls, and we're planning these again, where high school cafeteria packed with parents. And the big question that kept coming up over and over was, what do I need to do in the event that I'm deported or separated from my child? We had attorneys helping them fill out paperwork, and we're gearing up for that again, to help the families. And these are real concerns that have spread far and wide here in North Texas, and I'm sure all across the state. We're working hand in hand with the Mexican consuls to plan these, immigration experts, attorneys, to try to help inform and educate the community about their rights. We're working with law enforcement, hoping that some law enforcement agencies will not enforce this law, but there are some that will, and we know that's a fact, and that's precisely why Governor Abbott has weaponized the law against people. And so we have to fight back with everything that we have. And it's not just that. We look at gun violence, mass shootings, the Uvalde families that would come every single week to lobby for one key proposal, and that was to raise the age to purchase an assault rifle to 21. And let me know, I know I'm discussing another topic, but I think a lot of these are related in terms of Governor Abbott and the Republicans' attack on and not really moving forward the ball on key issues like mass shootings in Texas. They're, more worried about their NRA rating than children dying. And so the raise the age to purchase an assault rifle was something that I made a priority for Malk, that we advocated for, to try to get them a vote and a hearing in the House. They did get a vote. They did get a hearing. Unfortunately, it died in the calendars committee. But in the Senate, when that amendment to raise the age to purchase an assault rifle came up as an amendment, Nathan Johnson, a Democrat, voted with Republicans to block that amendment from even getting a vote. That is not acceptable. It's another reason why I'm running in, for state Senate. And there's just a series of things. Our LGBTQ communities are under attack. Ken Paxton is trying to weaponize CPS against, families who have a transgender child. It's just a series of issues, and which is why we have to fight with everything that we have right now. These are urgent times.
Yeah. And I think that you bring up a lot of really good points. And I think that it's important for us to really, put our minds around this. What is Republicans' end game? What are they trying to get to with these measures, these, racist measures at the border, or, blocking all gun control? And, maybe what does it look like if they win again in November? Let's start with Solomon. I mean, what do you think that is at stake, and why is it imperative for people to get out and vote this year?
Yeah, no, a lot is at stake, this November. We're seeing it right now in real time, what the right-wing Republican agenda is. It's frightening to our communities. It's frightening to our respective different districts that we're running for all across Texas. Just back to touching on SB 4, look at what's happening at the national level. We have Republicans in Congress who have been clamoring forever, trying to force Biden into some immigration reform, immigration deal. The administration is now, right on the edge of signing an agreement, willing to work with the Republican speaker. And now all of a sudden, because Donald Trump told them not to, pass any kind of immigration reform bill. Now, all of a sudden, everyone is the Republican leadership is backing away from it. This, it's going to be more of that, right? If things don't change, and it's a frightening proposition, to the state of Texas. And so more reason why we have to get engaged and we have to get involved. At the end of the day, I think it's just, greed, and, the Republican leadership just wants more power. What we're seeing in Ken Paxton and what's happened with the Attorney General's office is frightening. But there's a little ray of light, which was the recent victory yesterday of Dutton, ran against, I believe the gentleman's last name was Money, if I recall.
Yeah.
And she ended up winning the race, and he was heavily endorsed by the further right element in Paxton. And, I was reading on social media somewhere, like, if the other candidates that are proudly displaying Ken Paxton, in their literature and on their, push cards and signs, if now they're thinking twice about, embracing his support. I think people, again, with more information are seeing and realizing what is really happening with the far right and Republican agenda. And it's scaring people. It's concerning people, and rightfully so. And so, that yesterday was a small ray of light in terms of, hopefully people waking up and understanding what's at stake and seeing, these horrible policies and laws that are being pushed and passed by Republican leadership. And so there's a lot at stake, absolutely, this November, and more reason why we have to continue staying engaged in our communities and inform our communities as to what's at stake.
Absolutely. And okay, so Rachel, do you think that Texas in general is fed up? Are they paying attention? And if we don't see a big change in November, what is that going to look like for us maybe next year?
Well, I want to believe that they are. And there are more people who are more engaged this time than have been previously, and especially in the Collin County area. There is an increase in engagement. There's an increase in engagement from our young people. Like, people fail to realize, and I think, older people, our teenagers are walking around with a computer in their pocket.
Yeah.
They can Google anything at any point in time, and they have access to way more information than we did at their age. And they are paying attention, and they know what the legislature is doing. And when a law passes, when a law related to pregnancy passes, our young girls, they know that. They have concerns. When a law related to the LGBTQ community passes, those students know that. They come to school and they are concerned. And we hear that firsthand as educators. We witness that cycle firsthand every time these laws pass, how it's affecting our children. And, will they come out and vote? Gosh, I hope so, because they are so engaged and they are so aware of what is happening. But getting them to the polls and getting them to cast a ballot for whichever candidate they want, getting them to follow through with that step is going to be key, I think, to having their voice heard.
Okay. And so Victoria, you have been inside the belly of the beast. And I know that, from the outside perspective, it has gotten worse over the last several sessions. What is your thoughts about that as far as where we're headed? And what do you think that we have to do collectively as Texans to make sure that we don't get there?
I think Republicans are desperately trying to hold on to power for as long as they can, but things are changing. We have had, Democrats voting in some of the highest numbers that we've ever had, which is why they intentionally gerrymander the districts during redistricting to make them as Republican as they can. I think we have a governor who is trying to position himself for vice president in the event that Trump is elected. We've got, Republicans taking us as far back as they can. We're having some of the same fights today that our predecessors had 50 years ago, issues that people marched in the streets for. Diversity is now a bad word within the Republican Party. Since when did diversity, equity, and inclusion become this terrible thing? Diversity makes our state better. It makes our state stronger. Immigrants make our state better and stronger. Education, every kid, we want them to graduate with the best quality education, regardless of their zip code. And this attack even on our public schools to try to take away the funding is just a very coordinated and strategic attack by Republicans. But we cannot lose hope. We make change every single time. When we first won, you talk about every vote matters. We won by 50.8 to 49.2% in a Republican district that people told us that we could not win. And we did it by knocking on doors, by registering voters. And that's how we bring change across the state. The following year, we picked up 12 more seats in the House, 12 more Democratic seats. And we are changing. Texas is going to become a Democratic state. We're almost there, and we can do it this year. We have some strong Democratic candidates running for U.S. Senate. And so whoever our nominee is, we can take out Ted Cruz. And this is the year to do it. And we cannot allow Donald Trump to be elected. So we all have to do our work in our respective neighborhoods, in our districts, to register new voters, let them know when the election is, because we can make change and it's coming.
Yes, yes, yes. And if you guys aren't a precinct chair, find out if they need precinct chairs in your neighborhood, in your area, because we need precinct chairs all across the state. So we're almost time to wrap up, but I just want to ask one quick question. If the House does flip this session, do we have an opinion on who we'd like to see as Speaker? Solomon.
Wow. That'd be great if the House flips. Off the top of my head, I mean, there's a handful of members, that would be great speakers. I really hesitate to name one. A lot of those guys are my friends that I served with. A lot of them
You're
are
gonna duck this one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, but look, there's not a lack of talent on the Democratic side. We see it every election cycle. There's a ton of leadership in the state House, just like we see Rep. Victoria. She's been an amazing leader, leading the caucus and now running for Senate. So there's not a lack of leadership. We have plenty of individuals who would be more than capable to serve as Speaker. But right now, we just need to focus on getting it, back to control of the state House. And if not, get as close as we can. Back when I served, we had 74 Dems. It was one of the closest margins that we ever had, so it was only like a handful of seats difference. And that gives you a lot of leverage, in terms of negotiating bills and amendments. And so, hopefully this election cycle, we keep inching closer and closer and, to take back the speakership. And we won't have a lack of more than qualified candidates to be Speaker.
Okay. Victoria, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Sure. I think if the House flips, we need a Democrat for sure. And there are lots of amazing Democratic colleagues, people who have, fought alongside in the trenches as well. And so it would take a Democrat who wants that responsibility. And we have lots that that I'm sure would be amazing and would be willing to step into those shoes. And so, and first things first, we gotta register as many people. We've got to turn them out this general election. So that we can flip some of these seats. There are some also Democrats in swing seats that are under attack that Republicans are targeting. And we need to also hold those Democratic seats and ensure that we're supporting those targeted Democratic races as well.
Okay. I didn't get the answers I wanted, but we'll deal with that. We'll talk about it again in December. Okay, so Rachel, let's start with you. If you just want to wrap up and maybe tell people where to find you on social media or online.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to engage with you and with the voters online. I am running for Senate District 8. And my website is mellowfortexas.com. So you can find out more about me. And I have some blog posts there as well. So
Okay. And Solomon?
Yeah, Solomon Ortiz Jr. running for House District 34 in the Coastal Bend area in South Texas. Pretty easy to find, just my name, SolomonOrtizJr.com. That'll take you to my website where you can, follow along and what we're doing on the campaign trail. Also on social media, same handle, SolomonOrtizJr.com. So ask anybody who wants to learn more about the campaign, visit us on social media, visit us on our website, and get engaged. There's never enough volunteers, right? There's always a ton of work to do. So, we're asking anybody in the South Texas area, get engaged. If you're listening from other parts of the state, get involved in these different races. There's not a lack of great candidates running for office on the Democratic side of the aisle. And we all need your help, so get engaged. As far as me, SolomonOrtizJr.com.
Okay, perfect. And last but not least, Victoria.
Thank you. Our website is victoriafortexas.com, and we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or X, Threads, and TikTok at Victoria for Texas with the number 4. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. My name is Victoria Neave-Criado. I'm state representative running for State Senate District 16 in the Dallas area.
Okay, great, you guys. So don't forget, March 5th is election day. February 5th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting starts like 2 weeks before March 5th. So make sure to get out, vote for these candidates. We need people at the polls in March.